correct.
Some discussion from this. I think the gist would be that, at least as this is worded, that if somebody got appointed, stay in their first year, it's a 2-year term for all the person, that they would be on for the 2 years. If by some reason there was a vacancy and it was the second year of their term, they would go on with finish out that 1 year that's on their term of office, and then as a new term came up to you've already elected somebody again. So just turn it over to whoever wants to. Could be the city attorney or people on the committee or whoever. So.
Mr. Chairperson, Thad Kubishak here.
Yep.
I guess just for clarification purposes, I think you clarified it, but as the word term is written, it doesn't mean the term of for as long as the person is on the council. It means the elected term. Correct? Is that what we're talking about?
Right.
That's what I was talking about, yeah. So if somebody came in and they were starting their 2-year term and they got onto that commission, they would have 2 years. That's the route we wanted to go.
Does anybody know what the reasoning was behind it, since Mr. Kellogg's not here?
Mr. Aom, this is Shane. In speaking to Scott in the past, his thought was it's a huge learning curve to become a member on Water and Lake Commission with everything that's going on there, and so he felt it would be better if, by the time you get that year done, you're a little more comfortable. And so just for him, it made sense that it was be for the alderman's term, and just be the easiest that way, just for the information that you need to learn and know.
And that could be too, I guess, and it'd just be whoever was starting a new 2-year term would be the ones that would be considered be appointed, but if there would be a reason to fill in for the last year or something, that could be something to be looked at too. So,
Citing nobody in opposition to this, Kubishak makes a motion for approval.
be the term of office, or for the. So it could be for the full 2 years at that, or 1 year to fill it out.
Yeah, I apologize for what we're talking about for the term of office then.
Yeah.
So for a 2-year
Okay.
period.
Okay.
I'll second
Any
it.
further questions, committee? Hearing none, all in favor, respond by aye.
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 Ayes have it. Item 3 is the initial discussion regarding a salvage ordinance which would regulate the salvaging of non-structural materials outside the demolition process for vacant manufacturing buildings. That's from the Community Development Department. Unfortunately, Kyle was unable to attend the meeting today. He did send out a memo, which I did see this morning. Looks like he sent it Friday, possibly. I didn't see it till today, I guess, but I don't know if anybody else has seen it too. But from his memo, it's got in response to the idling of the Verso mill, it may be valuable for the city to adopt a version of the DNR ordinance template provided. The DNR strongly recommends having something in place to regulate and document the non-structural, non-demolition salvaging of equipment from large manufacturers, which also protects the general health and welfare of the community. The DNR memo summarizing the ordinance has been provided. Other communities that have adopted it in recent years include Kenosha, Two Rivers, Oshkosh, and staff has reviewed these community ordinances, applications, and procedures, which all closely resemble the DNR template, and would recommend the city pursue a similar ordinance. Positive feedback by the committee, the next steps would be to provide a draft ordinance for consideration with local amendments. Accompanying items such as an application and fee schedule could also be drafted for approval. It is fitting for the Community Development Department to enforce the ordinance and issue related salvage permits, with the Public Works Department also possibly having some review authority. Permit which could be easily created in our system and should not negatively burden our office given the infrequent nature of applications. And he apologized for not being able to attend the meeting in person. And but that the Public Works Director and City Attorney are knowledgeable regarding the subject and have been supported. And again, this ordinance is an ordinance that would greatly benefit the community and assist to minimize negative impact from salvaging. Sue, do you have anything to add to that?
I would suggest that maybe Joe Terry speak first, and then if there's anything that I feel should be added.
Any questions by anybody or anything, or interest in pursuing this, or see what an ordinance would look like?
Yeah, Mr. Chairperson, I guess if, not that I would be opposed to anything, but if there's any specific, and it doesn't have to be specific in the city of Wisconsin Rapids, but specific of what a non-structural salvaging means, that'd be great for clarification.
Tom, would you like me to respond to that?
Yeah, Joe. Okay.
So it kind of depends on the how the facility is built, especially an industrial facility. In many cases, the structures, as they're assessed, the structures are actually manufacturing equipment. So some buildings can be considered manufacturing equipment, and the salvage of some of this unregulated can result in some issues. An example locally might be the old foundry. So drafting something that is somewhat comprehensive, has some teeth to it, that at the end of the day, when they pull all the value out of that facility, this can happen, right? Pull all the value out of the facility by salvaging what's there, and then run away from a brownfield, and pretty soon the city's managing what's left. Obviously, the goal is to try to avoid that type of situation, and having something in place prior to any type of situation like that is immensely helpful.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions by anybody? Well, I'd be interested in seeing what ordinance could be developed and brought back to the committee for their consideration to see what there is. There could be other interests in that. I'll move that a draft ordinance salvage ordinance be drawn up and which would regulate the salvaging of non-structural materials outside the demolition process for vacant manufacturing buildings. So that'd be a motion.
All right, I'll second that,
Joe?
Kubaschak.
Have a motion and a second, drop with that draft resolution. If there's no further questions, committee, we can vote. All in favor, respond by aye.
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 Opposed, ayes have it. Item 4 is the initial discussion regarding the role and responsibilities of the Park and Rec Commission. That's a referral, I guess, that came from me. as being part of on the Park and Rec, and there's been questions of what duties or authority they have. It's more of a should be more of a advisory commission that the council has the purse strings, I guess, to spend money. So would it be, is it to be more of a advisory recommendation from the commission, or what? I think again, it has initial discussion, so if we just wanted to somewhat get this off the ground to get it moving forward, because there's a few commissioners that, to be honest, I think would like to have that they make the decision, and they think that it's more than advisory, that their decision is what would be the final decision, and which it could be. But so just what route do we want to go, or is there a way that we can split up some things, or what? And again, I'll just say that the council, I believe, has the control of the purse strings as far as spending the money. So, but there may be ways within the Park and Rec, if there is, that they can do certain things.
Mr. Ram, would you like me to address this a little bit?
What was that?
This is Sue. Did you want me to explain what I have provided to the committee?
Go ahead. Yeah, there were some handouts in our agenda here, so.
Right. I had provided basically the what our current ordinance says, and then some samples from different Park and Recs around the state, and they really go from, actually some don't have any Park and Rec commissions, some have it as a standing committee of the council, which means obviously that it's just alderpersons that are members. Some are similar to our present ordinance, so they're kind of all over the place in terms of the roles and responsibilities. Towards the end of the packet, I just have a list of responsibilities to consider. It's probably the last page in the packet, so these are, I think, the things that I believe that the Park and Rec Commission decides, or the council decides, and sometimes there's some ambiguity as to who should be having the final say. But, the fees for Park and Rec, if there are improvements to facilities, putting memorials in parks, figuring out where the room tax revenue goes, leases, strategic planning, receipt and use of donations, hiring staff, policies for park rentals, policy for park use, programming in the Park and Rec Department, approving contracts for third-party programming, trees and tree care, setting park and zoo hours. So those are just some of the things that kind of discussion purposes of whether the role of the Park and Rec Commission should be advisory to the council, and then the council has final decision-making, or are there some or all of these that you want the commission to have the final responsibility for? Right now, the Park and Rec Commission provides you with a budget, and as a general rule, as long as they stay within the budget in terms of contracting for improvements or spending that money, that's generally their responsibility, and Park and Rec does not, or I'm sorry, the council does not get involved. And I think from what I recall from their last meeting on this, when we spoke briefly about the Park and Rec Commission, I think instead of trying to parse through really what the ordinance says now, because it's probably a fair statement that we don't follow this to the letter, nor has it been followed to the letter for some time. Instead of trying to figure out what it is, I think you wanted to focus on what do you want it to be? Because I've constantly heard complaints from alderpersons about, whether, I shouldn't say complaints, questions regarding why they weren't involved in certain items that were on the Park and Rec agenda. And I've also heard from Park and Rec commissioners of why the council has been involved in things that they thought they should be in charge of. So I think basically it's up to the council to determine, because this needs to be rewritten. It's kind of modeled after the the state statute somewhat, which I've also attached. But I think it could be written much better and more plain if we, or if the council could determine really what they feel you want your role to be versus what the Park and Rec role to be. And as Mr. Rayom stated, is it something that's purely advisory and then you're going to approve their minutes and their actions at each council meeting? Or are there certain items that come to you? So, and someone at one point had said, well, just draft an ordinance or draft a new ordinance. And I guess I need to know what direction you want to go in order to draft a new ordinance and what you want it to look like and what control they're going to have and what the membership is going to look like. So I just wanted to provide you with some samples and some ideas to consider or things to consider when you decide maybe what the direction might be for Park and Rec.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Does anybody have anything to add to that, or? How may you like to pursue with this?
Mr. Chairperson, if I may.
Yes.
I guess we're not going to be able to solve the issue tonight, but I do believe that this is something that we could kind of wrap up into as we move forward with talking about having either another council member or more council members, and the redistricting. That if it was a case where it isn't just a power struggle, because I don't know anything about this one way or the other, or I haven't had a feeling one way or the other, or I haven't been approached one way or the other by either commission members or other council members, but citing what City Attorney Ms. Schill suggested, that what are the defined powers? If it's more of just defining what could be this power struggle, that could be one thing, or we could just completely redefine and kind of look forward in terms of the sustainability of what we want to do, not just next year, but the next 10 years in terms of how we want to plan for parks related and recreation related events. So with that being said, again, if you want specific action tonight, maybe we could establish an ad hoc committee to review this, or what would you be looking for, Mr. Chairperson?
Well, probably something like an ad hoc committee to come up with some ideas of what they wanted to, what they'd like us to look at. Otherwise, just I guess give thought to this, and then at the next committee meeting to do what we wanted, where we'd want to go. But it might be advantageous to have a committee look at it and to come up with something, with some ideas.
Mr. Rayom, this is Shane.
Yep. Go ahead.
I guess as a member by office of Park and Rec, talking to some of the other members, if it's going to be advisory, you might as well just eliminate it almost, because, I think some of the frustration comes with Park and Rec is that they talk and debate and they just make decisions, and then the council just overturns it. And at that point, what's the point of having a Park and Rec commission? So I think if you're going to look at it, you know, at least they need to have some duties and responsibilities that they can take ownership on. And if there isn't, then I don't see a point in having that commission. But I think there's great value in having a Park and Rec commission where they can solely, you know, we can look at appointing people that have a general interest in parks programs, and they can take ownership and try to build that program versus adding more onto the council's plate. Thank you.
What if we try to put some type of ad hoc committee together with, like, doing with some commission members and see what we can come up with and report back to this committee, you know, in the near future, and see what we can come up with. Because I do agree that's what some of the complaints were, that they look into things and make decisions on doing things, and then it's comes back to where the council could just overturn, basically, I guess, what they did. So I do agree that for them to have some type of say in, at least into some things, that make it worthwhile for them to do that. Obviously, I appreciate the input that they give and input that they put into everything as they look into doing certain things, but I also understand their frustration of being a total advisory group, where not necessarily what they come up with ends up to be. If we try to put a group together of 4, 5, 6 people to see what we can come up with, include some from the commission and a couple other persons, maybe from the legislative committee here or something, to and actually I think there's 2 aldermen that are right now on the Park and Rec even too, so see if we can come up with ideas and a defining structure of what their duties would actually be.
Tom, this is Shane. Do you want me to work with the city attorney and we can get you a list of that ad hoc committee, or how do you want to appoint them?
Sure. No, that'd be fine with me.
Okay. We'll get that to you, or we'll get it to the council, or at least the legislative committee.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairperson, if I may, would it be unreasonable to identify the parameters tonight to give to the mayor? For example, we would have 2 ad hoc committee members from the council, 2 from the residency, then they could, or they don't have to be from the Parks Commission. And then the 5th person would be the mayor, since the mayor is rather intimately involved with this in the first place. Ms. City Attorney, is that those parameters? Can we as a committee refer this to the council with those specific ones, 2 from the council, 2 from the citizenry, and then the mayor being 5, rounding it out at 5, and the mayor would be appointing these and the council will confirm them, and then that will be the ad hoc committee? And I'm getting a nod from the City Attorney Sue Schill. So, Mr. Chairperson, with that being said, I'll have that as a motion with the language that I just mentioned.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to that effect. If there's no further discussion, committee, we can vote. All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. I've lost my picture on the screen here, so in case nobody sees me, I'm not quite sure what to do to get back. So,
We can see you.
so I lost everybody's picture. That motion passed. So item 5 is the initial discussion regarding increasing the size of the membership of the council and increasing the size of standing committees of the council via charter ordinance in anticipation of local redistricting. And again, that's a referral of mine. At least some of that is that, and it's now's the time redistricting to look at that. I do have some feelings that I think are council size is somewhat too small, and that may be a chance to look at adding to the actually even the committees, because at some point, at times I think that these are my personal feelings, that the size of the committees are too small to get a lot of input out of. And I know from looking at some of the other communities in the area that their council is 10 to 11 people, I believe, and that some of their committees are basically, I think, pretty much 5 on a committee. Obviously, there'd be double duties to do something like that, so it'd be something to look at, but this is basically, again, because of the time of year that we're getting into with these redistricting that'll be coming along, that now's the time, I think, that if we want to take a look at increasing the size of the council, and where I'm coming from, it'd be to redistrict into, say, 10, just use that for a number, and it'd be we'd have 10 different wards instead of the 8. And as we went through the process, we could talk about duties of the committees, or how many on a committee, and that type of stuff. So, again, it's for the initial, I think, to bring it out, put it on the table for discussion, start some discussion maybe this evening, but at least to have it there, so when the next committee meets in a month or two, whatever, that they can take it up and go from there. But it's not something to put off for a year to now. It'd be to do something somewhat in the immediate future. Try to resolve it. It needs to be resolved. Looking for comments if anybody has any, or if they want to reserve it till the next meeting or think about it, that's fine too. So,
Mr. Chairperson, if I may.
sure, go ahead, Thad.
I agree that 8 is not where we want to be. 9, I guess I kind of felt we talked about this a little bit in the past, or we had a vote on it maybe last year to have 9, depending upon the situation. I think that one thing we want to take into consideration is the district that is bordered on either side of the Wisconsin River here, on the west side and the east side. And one of the things that the state makes the suggestion, it isn't it's a recommendation, is that there should be common boundaries as far as aldermanic districts go. And Mr. Kellogg's district, just by virtue of being there, that's the district that splits the river. If we knew what the population was, I don't have that information in front of me, but if we had that information in front of us, if it was a case where there is about a third of the population on the west side, it's between 30% and 40%, but I don't know exactly what that is. If that is a case where it comes out to be about a third, then that's where a number like 9 would come into play, or even 11 would come into play. But if we had 10, my only concern would be if we kept the common boundary, the river, being a separation of aldermanic districts, we would either be looking at 30% of the population or 40% of the population in terms of how we would divvy it up if we wanted to bring back that element of keeping the districts not, I guess, combined with having a common boundary like the river itself. So I guess with further, until we get like the demographics, and maybe that is a case where we have to wait till the census comes back to give us an accurate count. I think that would be as important of a decider in terms of how many council members we would have. Thank you.
What if we then, Thad, if we just, I guess, put this kind of on, not back burner, but, till the next meeting, till we have, or 2 meetings from now or whatever, till we get more information to what to do, but that we keep it on the list here. So.
Absolutely, I agree with that, so I'll make a motion to postpone this until the next meeting.
I'll second that motion. So we have a motion to postpone this till the next meeting.
Just a
Committee, if
quick
there's no further
question, Tom.
discussion- Whoop, whoop. Got a question?
Yeah, so do we have an idea when the, census will be completed? It's supposed to be in 21 sometime?
Right, first, I'm not sure when right now, it's really at the point where the county's supposed to start doing their supervisory, but I don't know when the numbers are gonna, and then it all trickles down to us, and then we have 60 days to do our wards, and then that's reconciled, and then we have 60 days to do our districts, so it probably would need to be, I mean, we'd probably have, if we're gonna change it, we'd probably need a charter ordinance by, I would say, June or July at the latest, because then we're going to need to, when we start drawing, we're going to need to know how many,
Yeah.
how many districts there are going to be. So it's kind of, on the one hand, you can't wait till everything's done to figure it out. It's going to have, the timing is going to have to work with when we need to get our work done to draw the wards and the districts. But we have a few months, but, you know, hopefully by the fall, everything is going to be wrapped up, and we would have a charter ordinance, because then you're going to start electing, well, actually, those wards, I guess they could,
What if we, for the next committee meeting, that we bring that back and that we, I'll look at whatever information that we got
Sure.
at that point in time and see if we can make a decision, and if it's to move forward, that, you know, we could do that in June or July at the latest for charter ordinance to do that if we did that with if the legislative committee met, you know, shortly after the new reorganization of the council, that get back together and see what could be come up with, and see what info we got, and, you know, not everything's necessarily will be finalized, but we might have some type of a better idea of where we're at. So we look at population and that who's where in the city and that. So
And then maybe to add to that, Mr. Ioma, is we would look at 9, 10, or even 11. So it isn't like we're considering 18, or it isn't like we're going to drop it down to 3
No.
or something. The target number would be that we don't like 8. 8 isn't really working, but 9, 10, or 11 would be the 3
Correct.
target numbers.
that's what I'd be looking at for that. Yep.
Mr.
And I think we could make an argument on each one of the numbers. So I think it'd be I think those would be the numbers to be looking at.
Mr. Raylan, this is Shane. So in
Yeah.
2010, when I did this, yeah, you'll want to know the number ahead of time. And because then the committee will sit down and go block by block to get an equal representation. And they'll have to try to mirror that with county supervisory districts, and it's a process. But yeah, we'll need to know the
Yeah.
number ahead of time.
Yep. But I think to go through that process, I think at some point, Shane, to decide what number for sure we want to be looking at, and then it's a process to go through, that's for sure. To get it so it's right. So I think see what type of, what info we have, and come up with a number that we might be looking at to go to, and you know, to get the thing moving, if that's what we want to do. So. But it is a process. So committee, if that'd be okay, if there's nothing else, committee, we can vote to bring it back to the next meeting. All those in favor respond by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 6 is consider an ordinance to increase the compensation paid to alderpersons. That's from Alderperson Poth. Steve's not present this evening. I would, I'm not sure what, unless I missed it in the packet, I'm not sure what for sure number he was looking at. I do know one time he spoke off the top of his head of a number, but I couldn't swear to that that's the number that he's looking at. So I know he was looking at have the pay for all the persons increase, but I don't know for sure what number he wanted us to look at. So this may be one to hold over if we can to the next meeting too. Or what's your wishes, committee?
Mr. Chairperson, if I may, I don't want to sway anybody with this statement. I would vote against anything. I guess not in my term of office that we're going to pay ourselves a wage increase. It just kind of looks tacky. And again, without having Mr. Koth here, one of the things that I do know is that it was referred to a certain committee, and then it was suggested maybe HR committee. And I had made the suggestion, well, let's put it on the legislative committee meeting because I assumed that Mr. Koth was going to be able to be here so that he could speak on it. So I guess without his input, either voting it, either voting up or down, without having any type of letter of memorandum, I don't know if we can. But on the other hand, Ms. City Attorney, is there like a time-sensitive thing that if this were to want to be in effect, we have to be voting on it in the next term type of a thing? So can this even be on the April agenda without it affecting one whole calendar year moving forward?
Right, it would not be, let's say, I mean, it's too late for the odd-numbered aldermen that are going to be starting on the, well, yeah, because if you're not going to take action tonight and it's not going to be final in March, then it's going to be too late for the odd-numbered aldermen for their pay to be changed. Generally, what we would do is have this, obviously have it sometime before an election, and then again, it only takes effect for the people that are going to be elected at the election following the change, and then the people that are not elected, if their second year, then they would get the pay. Or I'm sorry, not their second year. When they are reelected, they would get the pay. So, yeah, you can't increase someone's pay during their term, but you can set it, before a new term. Obviously, and I just don't know if logistically it could happen by the April meeting. I guess it could, but it has to be determined before they take office. And we kind of as a general rule like to actually have it determined before people take papers out, which is kind of a courtesy of knowing what it's going to be, but it doesn't have to be. It basically has to be determined at the time of the taking of office.
Mr. Rayholm, Shane. And speaking with Steve previously, I think he was hoping or looking at for this fall's term, so nothing current for this current term. And I think in his mind he had a number of like 750. He had it figured out with inflation that it would be roughly about 750 now. That's kind of what I know about this item.
I did provide, at the end of your materials, this is something that's probably a year and a half old, but the last time that this was brought up, I have a spreadsheet of all cities with a population of between 10,000 and 30,000, and it lists what the yearly payment or yearly pay is for each alderman in each of those municipalities.
So looking at this, you've got it the last couple pages of the packet here, that 750 times 12 would be 9,000 even, and that would be without the adjustment of committee chairperson and or secretary of the committee. So 9,000 would be, it would make us the richest paid council, at least in 2018 or 19 numbers or whatever you had for like-sized cities.
Right.
Tom, this is Jake, and you mind if I
Yeah.
make just a quick comment?
Go ahead.
I will tell you just up front right now, I would not support this increase either, so, thank you.
Thank you. Well, what would the wishes be? Obviously, I had looked at the last few pages and forgot. But I think the numbers that Shane mentioned was somewhat, I think, was Steve had mentioned before, but I didn't think of it right off the top of my head. But so it has been a number of years since it was changed, and I think that's where I think he was coming from, and that to make it more interested in people to actually maybe run for the position, but not necessarily that should be the reason to run. But I think that might be part of the reasoning behind it. So committee, what would your wishes to be with it to do at this point in time?
Well, do we need to vote to table it?
Yeah, so then the question is, do we want to postpone it? If we well, if we're not going to vote it on it tonight, then we've got two things. One, we'll either postpone it to another meeting if we desire, or if it's a desire to let it fail, I mean, we can always bring it back up too, but if that's what the committee is deciding, that, you know, we're not interested in a raise at this time, or approving a raise for the next term or whatever, then, you know, we can let it fail too. But obviously there isn't going to be a negative motion, so we wouldn't have a motion if we decide to let it fail.
Personally, I guess I wouldn't mind if we just left it on the agenda, and if the future committee wants to bring it up, then bring it up.
I don't know if we have a referral list, but I'll make a motion to put it on the legislative committee referral list.
Second.
All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Number 7, initial discussion regarding city residency for members of all committees, commissions, and boards of the city. And again, that's one that I guess goes back quite a while, probably with my name on it. But I've been of the opinion, I guess, as things have gone on, of you know, people to be residents of the community, to be on these commissions and committees and that type of stuff. Sometimes, obviously, it's hard to get people to be involved, and maybe there's certain ones that it wouldn't have to be. But I just think it's something maybe for us to think about here between now and maybe the next meeting. Should we look at a change or not look at a change? I think, personally, again, I think it's as much as we possibly could is to try to have city residents be part of these commissions. Obviously, in some there it's spelled out maybe who isn't or who wouldn't have to be, such as even on the Park and Rec. I do believe it's spelled out about, and that can be changed, but it's spelled out, I think, in there's the school superintendent, who wouldn't have to necessarily live within the city, but it's something, again, I think, just food for thought for people to think about and see if there's any appetite to do anything with it or not. Personally, I think it's something worthwhile to look at to see that much as we can to get city residents involved to try and do that. But again, it's up to the committee and the council of what direction they want to go. I'm not pushing on this one. Push. It's just a feeling that I have. So.
Mr. Rayom, this is Shane.
Yes.
So I guess as long as I'm the mayor, I'll never appoint a non-resident to any boards or commissions within the city that I have a power to appoint. I understand by the nature of an office, such as a superintendent, there's value in those positions representing Park and Rec or, sorry, I just looked at my computer screen, like even Joe with being on the wastewater commission. By the nature of the office, I think it's very important that these people are in those positions, but any citizen appointment, as long as I'm here, I'll never appoint a non-resident.
Well, okay. Thank you, Shane. I think that might clarify things that were going on through my mind too. So I appreciate that. That's why there are, I think, some exceptions to the rule to have that. But to me, where it's citizens to be pointed that, or that we should do as much as we can to keep that within the city. So I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
But I do also, obviously my tenure is determined by the voters, and I do think, and I would support any legislation that would change to make it a requirement that they be a city resident for future appointments.
You would support that?
Yes, I would support that because for future mayors and appointments, I think it's important that my personal belief is that our boards and commissions should be represented by our citizens, our taxpayers.
What if we, with the city attorney and that we come back with something at the next meeting with some type of wording to clarify this, see what we can come up with. If it has to be an ordinance or what it has to be. What if we came back with at the next meeting to do that? And obviously there will be appointments
Right.
made with the next,
Oh, sorry.
with the reorganization.
Right. I guess probably what I would do is I would need to go into Chapter 2, and then at each place where it talks about who the membership is of the different committee, if it doesn't say residents, I would change it to residents and just make it clear in each one of those that members are supposed to be city residents unless it's specifically, like you said, the school superintendent or a specific employee per their tenure or something like that. But I could do that if you wanted me to make those changes, to present them at the next meeting, or you wanted to go to the council meeting? Next legislative meeting, I should say.
It'd probably be if we could have something done before the, in time for the appointments for different commissions and that.
Okay, so then probably would it be okay that you make the motion to have me draft an ordinance that would make those changes then to be referred to the Common Council at its March meeting? I mean, April is probably going to be too,
Oh, at the
Might be too
March
late.
meeting?
well, I'm just thinking if it might require two readings and, whether it's going to,
If we could have that in time for the March meeting, which is next week.
yep, I could do that if that's what the committee wishes.
Okay, so let's see what you can come up with in time for before the March meeting, so we have it ahead of time a little bit, and see what's there, so. If that's okay with the committee, we'll do that.
Mr. Chairperson, if I may, I just wanted to point out, not necessarily that I'm for or against this, but we got to be cognizant in terms of that there are some commissions that are not equal, or, we need to realize that this isn't an across-the-board type of thing. For example, the Airport Commission obviously has to be made up of certain individuals that, we only have one vote on that. And then, if we take a look at the wastewater commission as well, we've got a member from Buren on that because we receive wastewater from Buren, or they're a partner with our utility. But then we also take in wastewater from Rudolph, but there is not someone from Rudolph that's sitting on there. So the question is that, are we going to just try and blanket this across here, or I don't know, this I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into it, but I want to point out the fact that, it isn't just a cut and dry type of a thing.
I think that we're, obviously, I think we're airport or something like that, where people are from outside the community, is that there's no, the intent is not to take that away. That's not the intent. So I think it'd be where we, look at the citizen volunteers to be on. If there's ones that are specific, would be from a outlying area or something that that is something could be looked at, but it's not to have a blanket thing just to get rid of all of those that are there for a certain reason. So it's basically with the citizens, that come forward, they want to be on these commissions, and that the city residents would be the ones that be looked at, be put on. So I'd be willing to let Sue see what she can come up with. It may be not something that, that wouldn't fly, but see what we can come up with, and or what she can come up with, and have it so we could have it before the council meeting next week. And if need be, we could have a special meeting. I guess I'd rather not, but we could have a special meeting right before the council or something to go over it. But, so. So, if there's no objections, why don't we do that? And see what Sue can come up with, and we'll go over it. I didn't lose you all, did I?
No, I guess we were waiting for like
Okay.
a motion or something from you, Mr. Chairperson.
I'll make a motion to see what Sue can come up with.
I'll second that, for what Sue talked about.
So you don't think we're past go here?
I second it, so. With that committee, we'll vote on that. All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. And with that, then that's the final item on our agenda. It's not really on here to adjourn, but if there's nothing else, committee, I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
The motion is second to adjourn. All in favor, respond by aye. Aye. Opposed, ayes have it. Meeting's adjourned at 5:30 p.m. Thank you all.